My wife cheated with my brother and thought I'd never find out. I caught them in bed and ruined their lives forever. Hey everyone. My name's Dan, I'm 34, and until recently I thought my life was pretty much under control. My wife Emily, 2 kids, our son Jake, 6 years old, and daughter Lily, 3 years old. A mortgage on a 3-bedroom house in our small town, and a steady job at an auto shop. Nothing fancy, but I was content. Emily and I had been married for 7 years, and I figured we'd been through it all. Arguments over money, sleepless nights with the kids, even her rough patch after Lily was born. I thought we were solid. Turns out I was just blind. It all started about 6 months ago, though if I'm honest, I still don't know exactly when it really kicked off. Emily started acting different. Not all at once, but little by little, like someone was slowly dimming the lights on our life. She worked as a manager at a clothing store, regular gig, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. But then she started staying late. First once a week, then twice, then 3 times. She'd roll in at 9, sometimes 10 p.m., looking wiped out with the same excuse. Dan, inventory's a mess. The boss is on my case. I'm exhausted. I bought it. Why wouldn't I? She wasn't disappearing to bars or anything. Just work, right? And the kids were waiting for her at home. Jake would ask, "Mum, where were you?" And she'd ruffle his hair and say, "It'll settle down soon, buddy." But then I started noticing things. Her phone. It used to just lie around on the kitchen counter, in the living room, even in the bathroom while she showered. Now, it was glued to her, always in her hand, always on silent. One night I said, "Em, can I borrow your phone? Mine's dead, need to call a client." She froze for a second, then said, "I'll dial it for you, just give me the number." I shrugged it off, but it stuck with me. Then the passwords. She changed them. On her phone, her Instagram, everything. Said Lily messed it up playing around. Lily, who's 3 and can barely reach the table. Really? And she started putting more effort into how she looked. Not that she was ever a slob, but this was next level. New perfume, weekly manicures, hair done, even if she was just running to the store. I'd tease her, "Em, you heading out on a date or something?" She'd laugh, but it was forced. "Just for me, Dan, I want to feel good," she'd say. I nodded, but a little alarm bell started ringing in my head. Not loud, but persistent. One night I woke up. 2 a.m., she wasn't in bed. Found her in the kitchen, in the dark, texting on her phone, typing fast like she was in a hurry. When she saw me, she nearly jumped. "Why are you up?" I asked. "Oh, Dan, just chatting with Sarah. She's got some drama," she said, and locked her screen quick. I didn't push, but the next morning I asked, "How's Sarah doing?" She hesitated. "Oh, she's fine now, sorted it out." That was it. No details. I didn't know it then, but Sarah would be my first clue to the truth. Then came the big night, Saturday, late October. Emily said, "Dan, I'm heading to Sarah's for a girls' night. I'll be back late." "You good with the kids?" I said, "Sure, go have fun." She got ready, dress, makeup, heels. Looked stunning. I even said, "You're gorgeous, Em." She smiled, kissed my cheek, and left. I stayed with the kids. Jake was watching cartoons. Lily was asleep. Normal night. But that feeling wouldn't leave me. Something was screaming, "Check it out." So I did. I logged into an old Facebook account I hadn't touched in years. Dan the Man, 92, a message to Sarah. "Hey, how's it going? How's the girls' night?" She replied after 15 minutes. "Hey, Dan." "What girls' night? I'm home watching a show, haven't gone out in weeks." My hand started shaking. If she wasn't with Sarah, then who? After Sarah's message, I sat there in the living room, staring at the kids, trying to figure out what to do. My phone was trembling in my hands, but I didn't want to believe the worst. Maybe Emily just lied to get a break. Maybe she's with another friend. But why lie about Sarah? My brain was spinning with excuses, but none of them held up. I had to know, not to catch her, but to stop the what-ifs driving me crazy. I called our neighbor, Mrs. Carter, an older lady who'd babysit sometimes. "Mrs. Carter, I need a favor. Got to run to the shop real quick. Client forgot his car." I lied. She agreed, showed up with her knitting in 10 minutes. I left Jake and Lily with her, grabbed my keys and bolted. My Ford was too recognizable. Emily knew its engine rumble from a mile away, so I called my buddy Mike, who lives 2 blocks over. "Mike, let me borrow your car for an hour, it's urgent," I said. He didn't ask questions, just said, "Take it, keys are in the glove box." His rusty Chevy was perfect, beat up and anonymous. I knew where to look. Emily always parked near the house when she went out. I hit the main road, heart pounding like I was in some damn action movie. 20 minutes later, I spotted her Kia parked outside a familiar place, my younger brother Nick's apartment. Nick's 4 years younger than me, lives alone, rents a 2-bedroom in the next district. We'd always been tight. He's Jake's godfather. I'd trusted him with my house keys when we went on vacation. I thought, maybe she stopped by for something. But why lie about a girl's night? I parked across the street, killed the engine, and watched. She went inside, and 5 minutes later, the lights in Nick's place flicked on. I waited. Half an hour passed, then an hour. The lights went out. My mind raced. Maybe they're just talking. Maybe I'm overreacting. But then I remembered Nick joking at a family dinner a couple weeks back. "Emily, you're looking better every day, Dan. Watch out, or someone's going to steal her." I'd laughed then. Now it felt like a punch in the gut. I couldn't sit there anymore. Got out, crossed the street. The building door was unlocked. I knew the code. I'd been there 100 times. Climbed to the 3rd floor, stood outside Nick's apartment. Heard muffled laughter, then footsteps and Emily's voice. "Shh, you'll wake the neighbors." My legs nearly gave out, but I pushed forward. The door wasn't locked. Nick always forgot I'd chewed him out for it before. I stepped inside. Silence. Then, from the bedroom, rustling whispers and sounds I'll never unhear. I opened the door, Emily in his t-shirt, hair a mess, Nick next to her, smirking like an idiot. They froze. So did I. Time stopped. Emily snapped out of it first, stammering, "Dan, it's not what you think, I just stopped by." Nick just stared at the floor. I asked, "How long?" My voice shook, but I held it together. Emily fumbled, "You've got it all wrong." Then Nick mumbled, "Bro, I'm sorry, it just happened." Just happened? I turned and walked out. Didn't yell, didn't swing, just left. Sat in the car for 20 minutes until my hands stopped shaking. All I could think about was Jake calling Nick the best uncle, Emily hugging me last week, us planning a trip, and now this betrayal. From the 2 people I trusted most. I drove home in a daze. Mrs. Carter asked, "Everything okay, Dan?" I nodded. "Yeah, thanks for helping out." She left, and I sat on the couch, staring at nothing. Emily came back at 4 a.m., tiptoeing in, thinking I was asleep. "How was the girls' night?" I asked. "Calm as hell." She flinched but recovered fast. "Oh, Dan, it was fun, but I'm wiped." I nodded. She went to bed. I stayed up, watching the dark. That's when I knew I wouldn't forgive this, and I wouldn't let it slide. After that night, I was a wreck. Barely slept, ate just enough to function, but I kept it together for the kids. Smiled, played cars with Jake, tucked Lily in. Emily acted like nothing happened. Made coffee in the morning, kissed my cheek, asked, "How's work?" I'd say, Fine, staring at her, thinking, how do you lie so easy? Nick called a few times, but I ignored him. Didn't want to hear his voice. Not yet. I decided to get proof, not for court. Infidelity doesn't mean much in our state's divorce laws, but for me. To know I wasn't crazy, and to hit them where it hurt later. I remembered a mini camera I'd bought on Amazon a year back. Tiny, looked like a phone charger, recorded sound and video. I'd used it in the garage once, paranoid about tool theft. Now it had a new job. I set it up in the living room, tucked it into a shelf corner, disguised as an old adapter. No one would notice. 2 days later, I got something. Emily was on the couch, thought I was in the shower. She called Nick on WhatsApp. I listened through an earbud, linked to the camera live. She whispered, Dan doesn't know a thing, he's just freaking out like usual. We'll divorce soon and that's it, we're free. Nick muttered something I couldn't catch, then said, You sure he won't figure it out? She laughed. He's too trusting, he won't even check. My fists clenched so hard my nails dug into my palms. Too trusting, huh? Next I dug into her old laptop. She barely used it, but I figured there might be something. Guessed the password on the 3rd try, Lily's birthday. Opened Instagram. She'd forgotten to log out. Jackpot. Messages in her DMs, not with Nick's main account, but an old one, Chris something. Took me a minute to realize it was him. Months of chats. Miss you, when can we meet? From her. Dan's on shift tomorrow, come over. From him. Some pics too. Nothing explicit, but enough to know they weren't just friends. I screenshotted everything, saved it to the cloud. Hands shaking, but I kept going. I met with a lawyer, Greg, a gruff guy, 50s, voice like a Western sheriff. Told him everything. He listened, nodded. Dan, infidelity won't sway the court, but if you want the kids and the house, hit their reputation and money, got anything on them? I mentioned Nick's debt. 2 years ago, he borrowed $5,000 from me for a beat-up Jeep he bragged about. No formal IOU, but WhatsApp chats were there. Bro, help me out, I'll pay you back in a couple months. Never did. Greg smirked. Small potatoes, but it'll rattle him. Sue him. I filed the claim against Nick. He called the next day, voice shaky. Dan, you serious? Over $5,000? I said, you owe me, Nick. Pay up. He started whining about we're family, but I hung up. That was just the warm-up. The real blow was coming. Emily got cagier after that. Fewer calls around me, more walks. But I was ahead. Added a second camera in the bedroom, hid it in an old lamp. A week later, caught her on FaceTime with Nick. He's quiet, but he's looking at me weird. Maybe we should bail. Nick said, wait for the divorce, then we'll figure it out. I listened, thinking, you'll wait, but not for what you expect. I realized a divorce wasn't enough. They'd shattered my family, my trust. Emily played the perfect mom, praised in the school parent chat, loved at work. Nick strutted around with his business. 3 coffee machines he called a startup. I knew where to hit. Their pride. The plan was set. By the time I had all the evidence, I wasn't angry or hurt anymore, just cold. Emily and Nick thought I'd break, that I'd let them walk away to their happy ending. They were wrong. I wanted them to feel what I felt. Betrayal, shame, nothing. And I knew how. At first I wrapped up the legal stuff. Greg filed for divorce and custody. I showed him the camera footage, Instagram, DMs, WhatsApp chats. He said, Dan, the judge, Mrs. Harper, she's tough, hates lies about kids. This is your ace. I nodded. Court was a month out, but I wasn't waiting. Revenge came first. Emily lived for her reputation. In our town, she was the golden girl, perfect mum, star of the school parent chat, respected at work. Nick played the big shot entrepreneur with his 3 coffee machines, calling it a startup, chasing bank loans. Their weakness? They thrived on what people thought. So I flipped it. I compiled everything, videos of Emily whispering to Nick, laughing at my trust, DMs plotting their future, audio of her saying, "Dan won't prove a thing, he's too simple." Made an anonymous email, Truth Teller 88, and sent it out. First, to the school chat. "Here's your perfect Emily," I tweeted with clips and screenshots. Within an hour, it blew up. Mums typing, "What? Zrenia Heterialna?" Someone called Emily, she didn't pick up. Then her work. Slack, your manager's not so honest. She got called in the next day, came home crying, screaming, "Dan, was this you?" "You ruined me." I said nothing. She quit. No one wanted her there. Nick got his own dose, sent the files to his business buddies. "Your partner doesn't pay debts and wrecks families." 2 days later, his coffee machines were smashed overnight. Coincidence? Sure. Bank denied his loan. Word got around. He called, yelling, "Dan, you're sick. I'm your brother." I said, "Were." Not anymore. Court was a breeze. Mrs. Harper watched the footage, heard Emily's "it's fake" excuse, and didn't buy it. I got custody of Jake and Lily, kept the house. Emily couldn't pay the mortgage. She moved to her mum's, reputation trashed, jobless. Nick vanished. Rumor is he's starting over up north, but no one trusts him. I don't take pride in it. It's not a win, just emptiness. Jake asks, "Where's Mom?" I say, "She's away, but she'll visit." Lily's too young to get it. Life goes on, but trust? That's gone. They broke my family. I broke their illusions. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's the quiet truth that hits hardest.